The teacher. They underestimated. The kidnapper barely glanced at the kindergarten teacher reading story time to 5-year-olds. Just another harmless elementary school employee focused on children's books and finger painting. But when he moved to grab the Swiss diplomat's daughter during the field trip and saw her neutralize his entire team using playground equipment and art supplies, he realized his fatal mistake. "Lady, stay back or the kid gets hurt," he commanded. Then she ended the international kidnapping plot in 3 minutes and 42 seconds. And what happened next stunned law enforcement across 2 continents. Welcome to Hidden Valor Stories. Before we dive into how a soft-spoken kindergarten teacher stopped an international kidnapping that would have triggered a diplomatic crisis, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from today? And if you believe that the fiercest warriors sometimes wear the gentlest disguises, hit that subscribe button. These hidden stories of valor need to be told. The Sunshine Elementary School in Alexandria, Virginia, had been selected for the Swiss diplomatic family's private tour because of its reputation for innovative early childhood education and its proximity to the International Embassy District. The school's kindergarten program was internationally recognized for its creative approaches to learning, and diplomats from multiple countries regularly arranged private visits to observe American educational methods. Miss Chen had been teaching kindergarten at Sunshine Elementary for 4 years. Her classroom a carefully orchestrated environment of controlled chaos where 23 5-year-olds learned about letters, numbers, and the basics of social interaction. At 31, she possessed the kind of endless patience and gentle authority that made her beloved by children, parents, and colleagues alike. Her classroom walls were covered with colorful alphabet charts, student artwork, and motivational posters featuring cartoon animals, encouraging kindness and cooperation. The reading corner contained dozens of picture books arranged in child-accessible bins, while activity stations offered everything from building blocks to finger paints to musical instruments designed for small hands. To everyone who knew her professionally, Sarah was exactly what a kindergarten teacher should be: nurturing, creative, endlessly patient, and completely focused on helping young minds develop through play-based learning and gentle guidance. She spoke in the soft, encouraging tones that worked best with children, celebrated every small achievement, and had never been heard to raise her voice even during the most challenging classroom moments. What none of them knew was that Miss Sarah Chen was actually Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, United States Navy SEALs. And for 8 years, she had been one of the most lethal close-quarters combat specialists in American Special Operations. Sarah's transition from Navy SEALs to kindergarten teaching hadn't been planned. A roadside bomb in Afghanistan had ended her military career with shrapnel wounds to her left leg and a traumatic brain injury that had required 18 months of rehabilitation. The doctors said she'd never return to active duty, but they also said her cognitive recovery had been remarkable. During her rehabilitation, Sarah had discovered that working with children helped her own healing process. The simplicity of their needs, the genuineness of their emotions, and the way they lived completely in the present moment had provided therapy that no medical treatment could match. When she was medically retired from the Navy, transitioning to education had felt like a natural evolution rather than a career change. Her teaching credentials had been earned through an accelerated program for military veterans, and her student teaching supervisors had been impressed by her natural classroom management abilities and her intuitive understanding of how to create safe, structured environments where children could thrive. But Sarah had never completely left her military training behind. Her classroom management wasn't just about patience and creativity. It incorporated tactical awareness, threat assessment, and contingency planning that her colleagues attributed to exceptional organizational skills rather than special operations training. This morning's diplomatic visit was routine by Sunshine Elementary's standards. Ambassador Klaus Weber and his wife had requested a private tour of the kindergarten program for their 6-year-old daughter Emma, who would be starting American school the following semester. The Swiss diplomatic family wanted to understand the teaching methods and classroom environment that Emma would experience. Sarah had spent extra time preparing for the visit, ensuring that her classroom activities would showcase the kind of creative, engaging education that made American elementary schools attractive to international families. The children were working on a collaborative art project involving handprint animals, reading time-featured books about friendship and cooperation, and the morning's math lesson used colorful manipulatives to make numbers concrete and fun. Ambassador Weber and his wife arrived at 10:15 a.m. with their daughter Emma, a bright, curious child who spoke fluent English despite her young age. Emma was immediately fascinated by the classroom environment and eager to participate in the activities that Sarah's regular students were demonstrating. "Emma, would you like to help us finish our handprint zoo?" Sarah asked with the warm, inviting tone that made children feel instantly welcome. "We're making elephants and lions using paint and our hands." The visit proceeded normally for the first 30 minutes. The ambassador and his wife observed Sarah's teaching methods while Emma integrated seamlessly with the other children, participating in art activities and listening to story time with the kind of enthusiasm that suggested she would adapt well to American education. But at 10:47 a.m., Sarah noticed something that triggered every threat assessment protocol developed through 8 years of special operations training. 3 men in maintenance uniforms had entered the school building, their appearance unremarkable except for details that most people would miss. Their work boots were wrong, tactical footwear disguised to look like standard maintenance gear but designed for rapid movement. Their tool belts contained equipment that didn't match typical school maintenance requirements. Most significantly, their body language carried the heightened awareness that came from operational training, not routine repair work. Sarah continued reading to the children while tracking the men's movement patterns through the classroom's windows. They were conducting reconnaissance, noting security cameras, exit routes, and staff positions with the kind of methodical approach that indicated serious operational planning. One of the men approached Sarah's classroom door, his expression showing the kind of casual interest that maintenance workers might display when checking on a room full of children. But Sarah's tactical training recognized something different in his assessment of the classroom layout. "Excuse me, miss," he said through the door's window. "We're checking the heating system. Any problems with temperature control in here?" Sarah smiled with the practiced warmth that had become second nature during 4 years of teaching. "Everything seems fine, but thank you for checking. The children are very comfortable." As they spoke, Sarah was conducting her own reconnaissance. The man's hands showed calluses consistent with weapons training rather than maintenance work. His eyes were continuously scanning the classroom rather than focusing on heating vents or temperature controls. Most telling, he was paying particular attention to Emma Weber's position among the other children. "That's a nice group of kids you have there," the man continued, his interest clearly focused on the diplomatic family's daughter rather than general maintenance concerns. Sarah's assessment was complete. These men weren't school maintenance workers. They were operatives conducting final reconnaissance for a kidnapping operation that targeted Ambassador Weber's daughter during what should have been a routine educational visit. "They're wonderful children," Sarah replied, maintaining her nurturing teacher persona while her mind shifted into operational mode. "We're so proud of how they're learning and growing together." The man left to rejoin his companions, but Sarah had seen enough to understand that Emma Weber was in immediate danger from a coordinated kidnapping attempt that would have international consequences. A Swiss diplomat's daughter taken from an American elementary school would create a crisis that could damage relationships between allies and provide whatever organization was responsible with leverage for demands that could affect global politics. At 11:23 a.m., Sarah's assessment was confirmed when she observed all 3 men receiving synchronized communications through nearly invisible earpieces, professional coordination that indicated the operation was moving to its active phase. Sarah excused herself from story time, ostensibly to prepare materials for the next activity, but actually to implement emergency protocols that none of her teaching colleagues knew she possessed. She quickly moved to her desk and activated a panic button that was disguised as a classroom decoration, but was actually connected directly to a federal protection detail that monitored threats against diplomatic families. Her Navy SEAL training had taught her to establish multiple contingency communications for exactly this kind of situation. "Control, this is Sunflower," Sarah spoke quietly into a communication device hidden among her teaching supplies. "I have hostile operatives targeting diplomatic personnel. 3-person kidnapping team preparing to move on Swiss ambassador's daughter. Request immediate tactical support." The response came within 40 seconds. "Sunflower, federal protection is 12 minutes out. You are authorized for independent action to protect diplomatic personnel. Rules of engagement are weapons free for protection of international assets." Sarah felt the familiar surge of operational focus that she hadn't experienced since her medical retirement. Her cover role as gentle kindergarten teacher was about to be replaced by 8 years of Navy SEAL training in close-quarters combat, improvised weapons, and hostage protection techniques. But first, she had to ensure the safety of 24 children while neutralizing 3 professional operatives who had planned specifically to defeat conventional security measures. The attack began at 11:31 a.m. when the 3 men entered Sarah's classroom simultaneously through different access points. "Nobody move," commanded the leader, producing a suppressed pistol while his companions secured the classroom exits. "This is about the Diplomat's kid. Cooperation means everyone goes home safe." The children froze with the kind of instant compliance that very young people show when confronted by adult authority, even threatening authority. Ambassador Weber instinctively moved toward his daughter, but stopped when the second operative gestured with his weapon. "Ambassador Weber, your daughter is coming with us. Don't make this complicated and no one gets hurt." That was when Miss Sarah Chen, gentle kindergarten teacher, ceased to exist. In her place stood Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, Navy SEAL with 8 years of counterterrorism experience and specialized training in protecting high-value assets using improvised weapons and environmental advantages. Sarah's first action was to knock over the large easel displaying the day's learning objectives. The easel, weighing approximately 40 pounds and constructed of solid wood, fell directly across the path between the lead operative and the children, creating both a physical barrier and a distraction that gave her precious seconds to implement her tactical response. Before the easel had finished falling, Sarah was already moving toward the classroom's art supply station with the kind of fluid motion that indicated someone who had trained for exactly this scenario countless times. Her improvised weapons were items that existed in every kindergarten classroom, but had never been deployed with military precision. Scissors became precision instruments for disabling opponents. Wooden blocks became projectiles thrown with the accuracy developed through years of specialized training. And even finger paints became tactical advantages when applied to enemies' vision systems. The first operative attempted to maintain control of the situation by targeting Sarah directly, but he had made the fundamental mistake of underestimating someone based on their apparent role rather than their actual capabilities. Sarah's response was a combination of martial arts techniques that had been adapted specifically for use in confined spaces with civilian populations. She neutralized his weapon using a disarming technique that incorporated elements from her childhood teaching props. Specifically, a wooden alphabet block thrown with the precision that comes from understanding exactly how much force is required to disrupt fine motor control without causing permanent injury. The second operative was moving toward Emma Weber when Sarah reached him. Her attack utilized the classroom's musical instruments. A tambourine became a striking weapon applied to pressure points that caused immediate incapacitation, while rhythm sticks were deployed as precision tools for controlling joint movement and weapon retention. The third operative was attempting to maintain control of the classroom exits when Sarah's peripheral vision caught his movement. Without hesitation, she grasped the classroom's flagpole, a 6-foot wooden staff topped with an American flag that had been chosen for its educational value rather than its tactical applications. Sarah's use of the flagpole was calculated for maximum effectiveness, with minimal risk to the children who were watching in amazement. The weapon struck the operative's weapon hand with enough precision to cause him to drop his firearm while avoiding lethal trauma that might traumatize the young witnesses. Total elapsed time from the first operative's command to the neutralization of all 3 threats: 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Ambassador Weber's security detail, which had been coordinating with the school's administration, was still responding to the threat when Sarah was already securing the operative's weapons and ensuring that all children remained safely positioned away from any ongoing danger. "Ambassador, you and Emma need to move to the secure area immediately," Sarah said, her voice carrying command authority that hadn't been present during 4 years of teaching storytime and mathematics lessons. This was a coordinated international kidnapping attempt, and there may be additional teams positioned outside the building. The Swiss diplomat looked at his daughter's kindergarten teacher with the kind of expression reserved for encountering something that challenged fundamental assumptions about reality. "Miss Chen, what training do you have that enabled you to... How did you know to... Sir, with respect, We can discuss my background after you and Emma are safe. Right now I need you to trust me and move to secure areas immediately. Federal protection agents arrived 4 minutes later to find 3 unconscious operatives, multiple weapons secured on the kindergarten reading table, and a teacher who was providing tactical briefings with the kind of precision that indicated serious professional training while simultaneously comforting 23 5-year-olds who were trying to understand what they had witnessed. The primary kidnapping team has been neutralized, Sarah reported to the FBI special agent in charge. Intelligence suggests this was part of a broader operation targeting Swiss diplomatic personnel. I recommend immediate security sweeps of all embassy locations and enhanced protection for Ambassador Weber's family. The special agent studied Sarah with growing amazement. Ma'am, what is your training background? Your actions indicate capabilities that exceed standard civilian emergency response. Sarah glanced toward Ambassador Weber, who nodded slightly. Professional recognition between people who understood that some conversations required security clearances that transcended normal diplomatic protocols. I have experience in personal protection and threat assessment, Sarah replied carefully. Today's situation required immediate action to prevent what could have been an international incident. Over the following hours, as federal authorities coordinated expanded security and intelligence agencies from multiple countries investigated the kidnapping attempt, Sarah's real background remained carefully classified. Official reports indicated that school personnel had detected and neutralized a threat through professional vigilance and appropriate emergency response training. But Ambassador Weber requested a private meeting with Sarah that afternoon, after Emma had been relocated to secure facilities and the immediate threat had been resolved. Lieutenant Commander Chen, the ambassador said quietly, using her real rank for the first time. I know who you are and what you sacrificed to protect my daughter. What you did today prevented not just a kidnapping, but potentially a crisis that could have affected relationships between our nations. Sarah maintained her professional composure. Sir, I don't know what you mean. I'm a kindergarten teacher who happened to notice suspicious individuals and took appropriate action to protect the children in my care. Ambassador Weber smiled. Of course. And I'm just a diplomat who happened to witness the most professional classroom emergency response in educational history. The investigation revealed that the kidnapping attempt had been part of a broader operation targeting multiple diplomatic families, with Emma Weber selected because her father's position made her a high-value asset for organizations seeking leverage against Swiss banking regulations that affected international money laundering operations. Sarah returned to her kindergarten classroom the following week, where 23 5-year-olds welcomed her back with the kind of enthusiasm that suggested they understood she was someone special, even if they couldn't articulate exactly why their teacher was different from other adults they knew. Parents began requesting transfers into Sarah's classroom, not because they knew about her background, but because their children reported that Miss Chen made them feel safer and more confident than they had ever felt at school. Her teaching methods remained gentle and creative, but now they incorporated subtle elements of awareness and preparedness that helped children develop confidence without understanding the tactical principles behind their increased sense of security. 6 months later, Sarah received a small package with Swiss diplomatic markings. Inside was a hand-drawn picture by Emma Weber showing a classroom full of children with a teacher who was depicted wearing both a gentle smile and what looked remarkably like a superhero cape. The accompanying note, written in Emma's careful 6-year-old handwriting, said simply, "Thank you for keeping us safe, Miss Chen. You're my favorite teacher and my favorite hero." Sarah placed the drawing on her classroom bulletin board, where it joined dozens of other student artwork that celebrated learning, friendship, and the kind of security that comes from knowing that someone is watching over you with both gentleness and strength. She continued teaching kindergarten at Sunshine Elementary, maintaining her cover as a patient educator while providing protection that extended far beyond normal classroom safety. Her emergency response training sessions with other teachers became legendary for their thoroughness, though she never explained why she understood threat assessment and crisis management with such professional precision. Because that's what Hidden Valor Stories is all about, discovering that extraordinary protection often comes from people who look like they couldn't harm anyone, who spend their days teaching children about colors and numbers while quietly maintaining the skills to neutralize international threats with art supplies and playground equipment. Sarah Chen proved that the most effective guardians are often the ones you trust most with your children, who earn that trust through gentleness and patience while possessing the capability to defend their charges against threats that most people could never imagine. The kidnappers had dismissed her as just another elementary school teacher. They learned too late that some teachers have background checks that involve live fire exercises and professional development that includes neutralizing hostile forces with whatever educational materials happen to be available. Sometimes protecting innocence requires experience with violence, applied with the precision that comes from understanding that the greatest strength is often found in those who choose to use it only when protecting others cannot be accomplished any other way.